Good morning to everybody. I'm very, very happy to be part of this symposium. And I'm recording from Naples, Italy. Sadly, I cannot be with all of you, but it is a pleasure to participate. And I want to thank very much the organization, and especially Bob Barr and Duke Ersinger. Now, coming to my discussion, to my talk, the point I want to discuss is this occasion of the last Watkins Glen Formula One Grand Prix of 1980, where Bruno Giacomelli, the driver of Alfa Romeo, almost won the race. Here is an image summarizing essentially all of the most important things I have to say. Here you see the start of the race, and you see the red and white Alfa Romeo of Bruno Giacomelli leading just after the start, having started from the pole position. You see big champions after him: Nelson Piquet, Carlos Reutemann, Elio De Angelis, and actually exiting the first turn, Alan Jones, which was going to win the race later. Actually, sadly, Bruno Giacomelli led almost half of the race, but for a minor electrical problem, had to stop on the track and lost the race. Now, I think that this missed victory could and should have heavily affect later Formula One racing, and I want to discuss about this. Is obviously talking about hypotheses, and history should not be done with hypotheses, but just remembering important facts which affected history, I think is also important. So I have to remember what is so important about this race and this day. It was the 5th of October, 1980. This was going to be the last race of Formula One race at Watkins Glen. Actually, was going to be the race in which Alan Jones were winning his first and unique world title. But you see here, starting from the pole position, this car, this Alfa Romeo, was something quite sensational. Why? It was an Italian driver, and it was not so common, actually, even today, it's not so common to see an Italian driver leading a Formula One race with a fully Italian car, fully mean both thinking about the engine and the chassis. And actually, I'm going to remember the points, the facts, which make this important. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of remembering things which an old guy like me can make them important. I think that for several reasons, this was an important occasion. Remembering facts of Formula One in the 70s, we have to remember at that time, most cars were using only the one engine, the very good, very powerful Cosworth V8 engine. And there was only another important engine, which was the one built from Ferrari. Ferrari was at that time, for a long time, the team building the only team building both the engine and the car and the chassis. Then at the end of the 70s, Alfa Romeo started to make a Formula One engine, actually firstly giving it to Brabham, and then deciding to make a full car, I mean, making the chassis and the engine. And also we have to remember that in these years, also Renault started to make a turbo engine, and actually turbo engines were going to affect heavily Formula One, and actually in the following years, all cars were going to have a turbo engine. Also, another thing we have to remember that in those days, Formula One was changing a lot because of the so-called ground effect. Cars were like this very, very nice Lotus 79, in which you see the big champion Mario Andretti, which is obviously very well known even in the United States, like in Europe, because he was, I mean, he has accomplished things, many things, both in Formula One, but also in all American races. And in those days, cars like this were having this ground effect in their side, having wings in their side, sealed with skirts, with so-called skirts, lateral skirts. And Alfa Romeo, in those days, decided to come back in Formula One. Alfa Romeo, we have to remember, was a very, very important racing team in the past, actually, going very back in the times. From the 20s, we can just show here the very big win of Ferrari in the 1935 German Grand Prix before the Second World War. But when Formula One started in the 50s, the first World Formula One championship was taken from Alfa Romeo with Giuseppe Farina, you see here on the left, and second, the 1951 World Formula One Championship was also taken from an Alfa Romeo, in this case with John Manuel Fangio. Actually, in the following years, Alfa Romeo left Formula One, but about 30 years later, Alfa Romeo decided to be back in Formula One with this car. And here you see, in 1979, Zolder Grand Prix, this small team with this driver, which we were saying before, Bruno Giacomelli, with returning in Formula One in 1979. And the very interesting thing is that they returned in the middle of the year, but at the end of the year, in the Monza Grand Prix, they also, this is the car of Zolder, the car which raced in Zolder in Belgium in May. But in a few months, they also prepared a second car, another car, this Alfa Romeo 179, which was using a different engine, not the 12 flat engine, but the VU engine, the 12 VU engine, which was made thinking about the fact that the car had to be also a wing car and needed lateral space to seal wings, big wings, and to have this ground effect. So we can consider that in the same year, they realized two different cars with two different engines. And actually, this was the car which was used in the season, in the following season in 1980. And was, with this car, they had a constant improvement, which brought them to the pole position of the last Grand Prix, Watkins Glen, a pole position which was absolutely not a combination, not a case, was not an occasional result due to special events, but the conclusion of a year of steady improvement. Again, you see this image. And next we can see more details. Here is the cover of the major Italian magazine about car racing, which was saying after the race, Alfa, thank you anyway. And these are the numbers. The numbers are interesting. You see this pole position, this is the starting grid. You see almost 1 second of difference between the first Alfa Romeo of Bruno Giacomelli and the car of Nelson Piquet, Brabham, or Carlos Reutemann. I mean, very important champions with very important cars. So the point is, new team was developed in less than 2 years and was able to be on the top. Very, very with a lot of advantage. Now, here's the rest of the starting grid. How this happened? How was this possible? The point is, there was this such big engineer, which was engineer Carlo Chiti, and a very nice driver. Bruno Giacomelli was the Formula 2 champion the year before, and then the Formula 2 champion, and was, even if he was very young, he was able to make a relevant contribution to car development, showing that he was able to take full advantage of a top car. So his contribution was very important. At the same time, here you see Bruno Giacomelli at that time, the Alfa Romeo. This is during 1980 US Grand Prix qualifying. And also, engineer Carlo Chiti was a very special engineer, able not only to make engines, but also a chassis. So, I mean, making a full car, designing alone a full car. Actually, he was originally with Ferrari, and then always with Alfa Romeo. Also designing the car, winning the 1975 World Sport Car Championship. Here you see him still working in Ferrari at the end of the 50s or the beginning of the 60s. And you see here an image of Carlo Chiti after qualifying the Watkins Glen Grand Prix in 1980. Very happy for the result. So it was an important result. Actually, the car, I mean, Giacomelli and his car were not able to finish the race, but showed a very big performance, and everybody considered that there were going to be very relevant perspective of Alfa Romeo for the next years. And we can also notice that conclude this point, considering that Mario Andretti, we see here during the Grand Prix preparation, Mario Andretti looked into the car to Bruno Giacomelli. Mario Andretti decided to drive for Alfa Romeo for the next season in 1981. Also, you see here a picture of Jackie Stewart, which I don't think needs any kind of presentation, even showing in that occasion showed a lot of consideration for Alfa Romeo Formula 1, and there were a lot of perspectives which actually Alfa Romeo was not able to meet in the next years for several reasons. One reason was that in the next year, lateral scares for ground effort were not allowed anymore. Actually, the following year, car had to be changed because still it was possible to have a ground effort, like also current Formula 1 have now, but these scares were not allowed, and there were also, we have to say, some teams which found a way to have a ceiling of lateral wing anyway, and Alfa Romeo didn't do anything to have this performance, so Alfa Romeo started to lose. Then in the following years, there was this switch to turbocharged engines, and also there was a decrease in interest of Alfa Romeo management. So this big day at the end of 1980 in Watkins Glen, which was also going to be the last Formula 1 race in Watkins Glen, didn't have a very important development. However, we can conclude, still we have this question: what would have been of Alfa Romeo team if winning this race? Probably things would have been even different. The consideration for the team would have been much higher. Probably the Alfa Romeo management would have considered more money to be put in this program. I mean, we don't have an answer for this question. But I think the point is that in that occasion, there was a team, there was a special driver like Bruno Giacomelli, an engineer like Carlo Quiti, which were able to show that they were able to make big performance, but big job, and this has to be recognized. So I close this talk. I thank a lot for the interest. I hope there was some interest in this talk, and there will be a link to contact me if anybody is interested to ask questions. I will be glad to answer. Thank you for the attention, everybody. Thanks a lot.